J-E-T-S. Jets. 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 Wow. The New York Jets, this offseason just keeps getting crazier, man. This team is going crazy this offseason, and I absolutely love it. I can't get enough. Inject this right into my veins. I kind of wish I was a Jets fan for the first time in my life, watching this team load up. And this honestly reminds me of the Rex Ryan years in New York, where they were just signing free agent after free agent. Hey, Santonio Holmes. Hey, Antonio Cromartie. Come on down. LaDainian Tomlinson. It's just like guy after guy, dude after dude, just like big name after big name. And now they go out and they trade for Haason Reddick, one of the game's best pure pass rushers in the NFL. Let me put it to you this way, Jets fans. 12 and a half sacks, 11 sacks, 16 sacks, 11 sacks. Those are the numbers for Haason Reddick in the last 4 NFL seasons with 3 different NFL teams. Yup, that's crazy. Haason Reddick is 29 years old. He's going to be 30 in September, and I don't think that's too old. And they get him for a 2020, listen to me closely, 2026. Yes, 2026 third round pick. That is conditional to be a second, dependent on playing time, snaps, etc. Even if this is just a rental for a season to help Aaron Rodgers get over the top and win a Super Bowl, this is a good trade. I don't care. This is a pick in 3 years. It's not 2024 draft. It's not 2025 draft. It's the 2026 draft. It's a pick in 3 years. We'll get to the Eagles, but I'm focused on the Jets. Even if this is a rental, you could potentially get a comp pick out of it if you let him walk at the end of the year. Or you extend him and he becomes a veteran, stable force on your defensive line. That is possible as well. But he could very well be a rental, get you 12 sacks on a dominant defensive front that could be the best in the NFL. On paper, this might be the best defensive front in the NFL. You look at it. Quinnen Williams is one of my favorite defensive tackles in football. I think he's probably the second or third best guy at that position in the league. He might be the most well-rounded defensive tackle in the NFL. John Franklin Myers might be the best hybrid DND tackle in football. You have first-round pick Jermaine Johnson, first-round pick Will McDonald, first-round pick Solomon Thomas, first-round pick Javon Kinlaw. Are we kidding? First round pick. Then you got Michael Clemens, who's solid. You got a lot of depth on this D-line, and I think it is the best D-line, arguably, in the sport. It's ridiculous. It's OP. It's overpowered. And I think you've got at least 2 guys that can go for 10+ sacks, possibly 3. Jermaine Johnson just had a career season last year. It was his second year in the NFL, but he broke out last season as the 17th best edge rusher in football, according to PFF, playing 748 snaps with an 83 overall grade. He was a top 31 pass rusher, a top 35 run defender, and I think Jermaine Johnson is a really good up-and-coming player. I liked Will McDonald a lot coming out of the draft. And Will McDonald, he only played 183 snaps, but he also graded out pretty well, right around John Franklin Myers grading. And Michael Clemens, a solid rotation player, playing 368 snaps the year before. Haason Reddick, guys, this is not just a player that has to be in the Huff role, right? This is obviously a Huff replacement, and Salah's been chasing the Huff replacement all offseason. We thought it might be Clowney. Right? They tried to bring in Jadeveon Clowney, which would have been a much different player. Haason Reddick is a great pure pass rusher, right? Reddick is a 10-sack guy, like locked and loaded. Clowney is a better, maybe, run defender, but somebody like Reddick, he is a pure edge specialist. He's going to bend the corner, he's going to turn the corner, and he's going to get to the quarterback. And in this specific system with the Jets, he's going to have less run responsibilities, less responsibility to set the edge, and more pin your ears back responsibilities. And I think the systems that they've been running under Gannon have been similar. Like when Reddick had his huge season with the Eagles, 16 sacks, second team All-Pro. I think the fronts of the Eagles are more similar in that season than they were last year or they will be this year. With Vic Fangio coming in, I think there's going to be more emphasis on those edge players to set the edge, to play the run, and then also more emphasis on maybe size, more emphasis as well on potentially them standing up. But Reddick, to me, has been one of the best edge rushers in football the last few years. He really has been. And one of the most consistently productive guys in football. And also healthy. 16 games, 16 games, 16 games, 16 games, 16 games, 17 games, 17 games. That's his career. Healthy. And he played 900 plus snaps last year. Like, he played 910 snaps last season. 910 snaps at the edge position is fairly uncommon. That was the 7th most snaps in the NFL at the edge position. Or sorry, not 7th. 13th. My bad. But still, it was the most on the Eagles. It was more than Josh Sweat, who is a very good player. But it was the most on the Eagles. They relied on Reddick the most. And now with Reddick aging just a tad, getting to 30 now, he's going to be able to rotate with these other rushers with the Jets and potentially take a load off of his shoulders and potentially play the run less, keeping him fresh more, allowing him to be more effective in the pass rush department. Playing the Huff role potentially a little bit more than the Huff role, but being a dominant player for them when it comes to rushing the quarterback, which you need in the AFC when you got to play Burrow and you got to play Stroud and you got to play Mahomes, and you got to play Allen in your division. And when you're talking about the Jets and their ability to get to the playoffs, you've got to be able to beat the Dolphins. How do you beat the Dolphins? Their O-line sucks. Get after the quarterback. Win the line of scrimmage. You look at the Jets right now, there is no debate for me. This is one of the best rosters in the NFL. This team has very few flaws, very few deficiencies. This team, on paper, could have a top 5 defense and a top 10 offense. That is rare. This team could have a top 3 defense and a top 10 quarterback. That is rare. That is a contender in my book. Whenever you can field that combination, you are a contender. And then you add in the fact you've got a big-time receiver in Garrett Wilson. You've got an awesome now number 2 who hopefully can stay healthy in Mike Williams, but can be really good for you. Breece Hall is an electrifying running back. Now you're going to be able to spend your draft capital in the first round on offense. There is no more need to spend it on defense. Robert Saleh has no excuse. His defensive front is loaded at all positions and all fronts. Linebackers, D tackles, D linemen, D ends. The only position he needs is safety, and that can come later in the draft. That can also come through free agency. Guys like Micah Hyde, guys like Quandre Diggs, guys like Justin Simmons are free agents. You can still go out there, Julian Blackmon, go get a guy. Get a safety. Chuck Clark is back, but get another one. So, to me, they've solved their offensive line on paper. They've solved their number 2 receiver on paper, Mike Williams. And as long as those positions are healthy, right, I think they've upgraded their D-line with Haason Reddick. I think they've upgraded the youth of their D-line with Javon Kinlaw on the inside instead of Quentin Jefferson. I think that they have one of the most loaded defensive fronts in football, and that's always valuable. Strengthening a strength is always valuable. People will criticize them, why didn't they just spend it on Huff, or why didn't they just... Because this is a rental, in my opinion. I view this as a rental. And this is a team in a win-now window. And they get a player that plays like 500 more snaps than Huff did last year. So, and he's a more well-rounded player. He's a better player. He's more productive. Has he been more down-to-down efficient? No. Well, that's obvious. Huff is younger. Huff was a big-ticket free agent. Okay, that's fine. The Eagles were going to move on from Reddick. But if you're the Jets, you got to say, why not? Like, I understand they picked Will McDonald in the first round last year. I'm not sure. Maybe they don't think he's up to snuff yet. Maybe they think he's just a role player right now. And maybe this is a little overboard, but I don't ever see spending on D-line as overboard. I really don't. I think D-lines are essential to winning Super Bowls. Especially in this system, in this scheme, you need pass rushers. You can't play your cover 3 or your quarters or your cover 1 as consistently as you do with quarterbacks understanding the coverage that's going to come most of the time. As good as your secondary is, you need a 4-man rush that can wreck a game. And I love that the Jets are continuing to push the defense button. And now in the first round, you can get a Brock Bowers, you can get a receiver if you want, you can get a tackle if you want for the future. All those things are available for you. So I personally love this trade for the Jets, especially considering it's a 2026 pick. I also understand it for the Eagles. Right? The Eagles have a loaded defensive edge position, and there's one player in particular that they need to play. Like, Nolan Smith was a first-round pick. You can't just have Nolan Smith not playing, right? And Nolan Smith, to me, fits Vic Fangio's system as a stand-up edge rusher who can play in coverage, play the run. He's an athlete. So you got him. You got Bryce Huff, who you paid big time. He's not just going to be playing 500 snaps like he did with the Jets. He's got to play more. Josh Sweat is a stud. Brandon Graham is a veteran, probably more of a role player now, but you still got 4 edge rushers that you can rely on in this system. And then, of course, you've got Jalen Carter. Of course, you've got Jordan Davis, etc. So the Eagles are not going to be lacking in terms of pass rush. They might take a slight hit in terms of pass rush ability, in terms of sack reliability, but they're also going to be able to use this money now and maybe spend it on Justin Simmons to help their back end. Maybe spend it on a corner to help their back end, right? So there you also got to think about that. So I think the only L for the Eagles is that their pass rush got a little bit worse and that the pick they got was like in the future, way down the road. Like the Jets could potentially get a comp pick for Reddick before the Eagles even receive their draft pick. I believe that's how that would work. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's how that would work. So for me, I think this is an understanding of what was taking place. As soon as Huff got paid by the Eagles, you knew he was going to get traded, Haason Reddick. Now, I figured it would be to a team that actually needed a pass rusher. I don't think the Jets, N-E-E-D, need, right? They wanted, they could have, they'd like to add another Bryce Huff type, a pure pass rusher for third downs, for sub packages, for getting after the quarterback. That is Haason Reddick in my book. Now, Reddick has shown that he can play more consistently. He can play on more snaps. He's more of a workhorse. He can play against the run. But if you can loosen up his load at 30 years old, he might be actually even better. And then you knew the Eagles were going to make this move because it was on the table. It was there. They weren't going to have Huff, Sweat, Reddick, Smith, Graham. Just makes no friggin' sense. They all play the same position. Now, according to Next Gen Stats, Reddick played 70% of the snaps for the Eagles last year in terms of early downs. Huff played 30%, 250. Pressures for Reddick, 44 to 27. Pressure rate was higher for Huff at 19.3 to 13.4, but the get-off speed was about identical. The average time to pressure was actually faster for Reddick. So Reddick and Huff are both fairly similar as edge rushers, but Reddick is willing to play more, can play more. I'm intrigued to see what Huff is able to do. I think he's a young stud, up and coming. But this totally makes sense for both sides. I understand it. I get it. But when you're talking about Reddick, I mean, you're talking about a guy that on Arizona had 12.5 sacks. On Carolina, who does this? 11 sacks. On Philly, he had 16 sacks in 2022, helped them get to a Super Bowl, is arguably their best defensive player that year. 4th in Defensive Player of the Year voting, 2nd in All-Pro team, Pro Bowl, and then this year had 11 sacks and a Pro Bowl. And 5 forced fumbles the year before in 2022, tied for the NFL lead. He's a good player. He's a productive player. He's consistent. He's healthy. He's a good player. He's a former first-round pick, 13th overall by the Cardinals in 2017. Once upon a time, ran a 4.5 in the 40. It's an athlete. He fits the Jets. Pin your ears back. Get to the quarterback. His size doesn't matter as much at 6'1", 240. It's not really going to be a big deal. And I could see him in rotation with John Franklin Myers on early downs. Franklin Myers might be able to move to the interior. You can move him around on, let's say a 3rd and 8. He'll play on the defensive tackle position beside Quinnen Williams. Then you can have Reddick and Johnson on the edge. Or Reddick and, whoever, right? Like Reddick and McDonald. And then you've also got Clemens. So there's just so many different ways you can go here. It's just great stuff. I think the Jets are loaded. I'm excited to watch them play. I think Aaron Rodgers is a huge winner here. I think his defense is going to carry him to wins, and he's just going to have to manage the game. And as long as he can make a few throws every game, they're going to be very dangerous. So obviously big questions with Aaron Rodgers, but this team has everything it takes on paper to be really, really good. It reminds me of the Jets Rex Ryan teams, except now you have Aaron Rodgers and not Mark Sanchez. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. It's Mitch of TheBottomLineView. Gronk, spike the like button. Finishing it up. I'm a little surprised that the Jets were the team to pull it off, but they did it. And we heard the rumors about Saleh wanting defense in the first round and the ownership in the front office not exactly agreeing with him. Well, now you got your pass rusher. You got that piece that you wanted. You got that missing piece to your front seven, Robert Saleh. And now Aaron Rodgers might be able to get Brock Bowers at tight end in the first round. He might be able to get a receiver. He might be able to get a tackle to help supplement the often injured Tyron Smith. So there's things that you can do now in the first round that you weren't able to do. Last year, Reddick had 68 pressures in 18 games. That was 17th in the NFL, 13 sacks total, including the playoffs, and 13 hits. Still a good player. Not elite, still a good player. And I think he's really going to add to the Jets front. I think they're OP. I think they're overpowered. They're dangerous. They're scary. They're scary stacked. And the Patriots are going to get crushed. The Bills, look out. The Dolphins, look out. The Chiefs, look out. The Jets are coming. Jets. Thanks for watching. Peace.